This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And this week we are ranking the starting NBA point guards for the 2017-2018
and so
season.
It begins.
Yes.
So it begins.
Finally, we get back to the absolute madness that is calling us idiots because we ranked your point guard lower than you think.
Yes. So we will get into this. We're going to do point guards, shooting guards, small forwards, power forwards, I'll say point forwards, centers, coaches, and six men. And then we're going to take all of those, put them in one, and give you team rankings from that. We did it last year. Like Dave said, there was a lot of kickback because we used Real GM, and Real GM didn't have the update depth chart. We went away from Real GM. We got it going. We think we got the right point guards for this. So if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. We're going to be splitting these up into 3 segments. If you're on Blog Talk Radio, thank you so much for downloading us. You're going to get the whole thing in its entirety. So let's jump in, boys. 30 through 21. Let's kick it off. Coming in at 30, we got Frank of the New York Knicks.
Not going to try to say the last name, are you?
No, Frank the Kid Lion.
That was not bad. You just say it quick enough, nobody will question it.
Yeah, so I'll just say Frank. Yep. I listened to so many videos of him saying his last name.
And you still can't say it.
Of announcers pronouncing his name, I can't get it down. 29, we got Chris Dunn of the Chicago Bulls. 28, we got Tony Parker. We'll explain why these rankings are in just a little bit. We're just running through it. 28, Tony Parker. 27, Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets. We got 26, Darren Collison of now the Indiana Pacers. 25, we got Reggie Jackson of the Detroit Pistons. 24, we got Malcolm Brogdon of the Milwaukee Bucks. 23, we got Elfrid Payton of the Orlando Magic. 22, we got Ricky Rubio of now the Utah Jazz. And 21, rounding out this segment, we got Pat Bev now of the Los Angeles Clippers. So jumping in out of this, boys, who's the biggest surprise? Like who's really low, who's really high, anything here?
I think the guy we have to start with is from last year to this year, our biggest faller of Reggie Jackson, who fell 14 spots from last year to this year.
Oh, man.
He was
14 spots.
He was 11 last year. So let's put that. He was 11. Some of that ranking was because of the crazy playoff run that the Pistons did have. 4 close games against the Cavaliers. And
we thought it'd be the same.
They looked like they were a young and up-and-coming team. I had them in the playoffs. I think I had them as a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. And he just lost his ability to create.
Yeah, I mean,
completely.
He had a terrible year. I mean, he went from almost 19 points a game down to 14. He played only 52 games this past year. Shooting, he got worse.
Injured.
Yeah. I mean, across the board, it just went down for him. And that was a guy where, up to that point, he'd been going up the last 3 seasons. Where up, and it looked like he's in his own. We know he's a little bit of a selfish player, but that's fine. We can work with that in the NBA. That's point guards. That's fine. But then just all of a sudden, this Detroit team. It was this isn't working. And we're watching it happen over the season. It was oh, this is getting worse. Oh, this is going really bad.
Yeah.
I got to look away.
And it was something, too, where the offense just didn't flow well.
No.
And you can look at all the stats, and the stats won't tell the exact story because you look at it. He took less shots. Yes, he played less minutes. He did have a decline in assists.
A downcline.
A decline in assists going from 6.2 to 5.2. But then again, he had less minutes. And then you also look at the turnovers. Again, 2.8 going down to 2.2. You look at the numbers and you just say, oh, well, he played less minutes, so that's why you see his numbers declining. But you look at the way that the Pistons performed when he was leading this offense, and they just looked like a completely different team, and they didn't look right out there. And that's why there was trade rumors for Ricky Rubio possibly going to Detroit. And then people were looking to ship Reggie Jackson out there because the chemistry just wasn't there between the whole team. Stan Van really didn't have his magic, and Reggie Jackson fell. And not saying that he doesn't have any promise. Again, he's still 27 years old. We've seen the promise before in Reggie, but right now he sits at 25, and it's just because of his selfish play, his really lack of ability to create. And I mean, there's definitely hope for him, but I don't know really what we're going to expect.
No, I mean,
from the
I feel
Pistons
like he's one more season away from becoming a 6th man in my mind.
Really?
That's the role I can see him falling to. It's just at this point in the NBA, the 6th man as a generalization of the role is a scorer. It's a spark plug off the bench. It's someone to get your offense going. And usually it's not someone who's a full-time creator. It's not someone who can run the offense for an entire game. And that's exactly what I see with Reggie.
Well, and that was the place that he wanted to leave. He wanted to leave OKC because he was a 6th man backing up Russ Westbrook.
Exactly.
Obviously, he's not getting past that stone wall. So then, now he goes to Detroit. Had a really nice season, and this season just fell off.
I'm taking it into injury, though, because, what you just said, he had to play with Russell Westbrook, with being the backup point guard behind Russ. Probably isn't the easiest job if that's a job that you want someday in the NBA. And I mean, besides for last season, 17.6, 18.8 were the averages, and we just saw lower numbers this year. I'm looking at it more so of he was injured. Let's see how this one goes and how bad his numbers were with the injury. If you look at his per for last year, he was ranked out of all the point guards, he was ranked at 27. And then if you look at his value added to a team, which is how much value do you add over a guy who would be the 12th man on your roster, he was 29th of all the point guards, and that was all starters and backup point guards for last year.
Yeah, and usually looking at per, if you're around 15, that means you're an average NBA player. He was a little under 15, 0.06 under 15. Yeah. So he was an average player last year. He was nothing special. And with point guards,
felt almost like a net negative out there when you watch them play. And I think that's the biggest deterrent.
And with point guards too, I mean, there's so many great ones. We were pretty much our first 16 we had locks because those guys were separating, and then after that we were like, well, we can throw in anybody really here. And Reggie, I think it was kind of a lack of really any spark and any noise last year. I mean, I had him ranked the lowest at 28 last year out of us. Ricky had him ranked the highest at 21. Well, Dave kind of in the middle at 24. But then again, I mean, I just didn't see he doesn't do that much defensively for you. He really slowed down the offense for Detroit. And again, this is a young team that should have had a lot of promise. And I feel like Reggie was one big reason why they really slowed down.
I absolutely agree, because they went from a team, like you said, that great playoff performance. Yes, they didn't win, but they showed that they were on the right path. And into this season, now it's questioning. Well, we've heard Andre Drummond talks in trades. We've heard Reggie talks in trades. And KCP just left. So they went from a promising up and coming young team to what are we doing? It's
going to be interesting to see what happens with the Detroit Pistons. And before we get into the new arrivals here, I think we got 4 in this segment. I want to jump to one guy, and it's Tony Parker. He fell 4 spots here, and I know some people will be like, you got to give him respect.
The sponge is getting worn out.
Manu's the bar is soaked.
I see both of them in the pop system where he's going to use Tony Parker like a sponge too.
Well, Tony Parker, a guy that he played well in the playoffs. He played well throughout the season, but you look at the injury that happened. That was one reason why I completely tanked my rankings. I had him coming in a little bit above Reggie Jackson, coming in at 27. Dave had him at 27. Ricky had him at 28, so still around there. That injury, it just looked bad with his age. I don't know how he's going to be able to come back.
And especially for a guy who's known for his ability to get to the hole with I don't want to overly whatever, but the Euro step was him. He was one of the biggest guys contributing that to the game, and his impact on the court, his smoothness with ball handling, all of that scares me now, because now I'm like, dude, you're in your late 30s,
35-year-old,
you're not getting younger, and you're coming off of an injury. None of this adds up to a good ending for you. So I'm very concerned. I mean, he's still one of the best leaders, though. That's one of the things where it's it's intangibles is where I give him credit, and that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but what he does for that team and that organization speaks volumes.
Yeah, and it's something where I think Tony Parker, he has a lot of respect in this room. I know we all respect Tony Parker, but it's something, you're 35 years old, coming off this series of an injury. I don't know how much to expect from you. And that's something that also plays into this. What's your expectation going into the year? How much can we expect from you? I think we'll get a little bit into that when we come to the rookies. Yeah. But none of those guys are here outside of Frank. So let's get to the newcomers here. Frank, obviously a huge newcomer. He's a guy that's very raw, though. Starting in New York, it's something that I think that's really going to slow him down. I think that's the reason why we have him at 30.
Well, and all the newcomers we have into these rankings, Malcolm Brogdon, Jamal Murray, Chris Dunn, and Frank, they all have either one thing or one kind of common area that they all have in common. When it comes to guys like Frank, Jamal, and Chris, they all have the thing in common where really I know Jamal's been there for more of a year, but this is the year where we're expecting Jamal to be the starting point guard for Denver, but for Chris and Frank, new point guard in a new scheme. Yeah. Chris Dunn coming over to the Chicago Bulls, where it killed me to put a Bulls point guard so low, but really I couldn't put him above anyone else. Him and Frank coming into new teams. Jamal Murray, it's well, they drafted you to be this, and we're hoping you can be the point guard. And then Brogdon, it's you were Rookie of the Year last year, but there were so many circumstances of how he won that, and can he contribute in that Bucks system yet again, and can he increase numbers, or will they be the same?
Well, I think that I don't think we're going to see a huge jump from it. I think that Malcolm Brogdon's going to stay around the same way because, I mean, again, he's a guy that's 25 years old, I think now, 24, 25 years old. I mean, he was a very old rookie last year, but he's a guy that really isn't going to develop too much. But the guy that we saw last year could be a very successful NBA player, a guy that's a great three-point shooter, a guy that's great defensively, a guy that's going to bring high energy, and he's very athletic. So it's a guy that, I see as, obviously he's going to be probably more of a shooting guard in the traditional sense because Giannis will be your point guard. He'll be handling the ball, but just because he is
he's
the smaller,
listed at the point guard position.
Yeah, I mean you're not going to put Chris Middleton there. You're not going to put Giannis there because Giannis is so damn big. It's just something where ultimately Brogdon's going to play out there. So he's not a game-changing point guard because he's not a point guard, but he is a very quality player, and that's why he's that high. And I think Brogdon's a guy that's going to be able to stay in the NBA, staying starting lineups because he's exactly what you want in an NBA player. He's a 3-and-D player. He's a guy that's going to stick around. And I think that's where most of these guys are. You look at Patrick Beverley, Ricky Rubio, Darren Collison. These are guys that have been able to stick around. I mean, there's guys that aren't really making noise here in this 30 through 21, but these are guys that are sticking around and are still able to make consistent contributions to a team, and hence why they're on an NBA roster.
And that's what I want to talk about is what's the similarity? We're talking Pat Beverly, Ricky Rubio, Chris. No, I'm saying and Chris Dunn.
A lot of guys have switched to new teams, but there's still
a lot of them are new teams, and a lot of them are defensive point guards. Guys not known to light up the scoreboard, but they're gonna give it back to you on that other half of the court. And I absolutely love Patrick Beverly, and I love what he's done for the Rockets, and now going out to the Clippers team. My only concern with him is he going to be their long-term answer? Probably not. He's a fantastic defensive player. He's a okay guy. But I don't know if I trust him running point for an entire game. They brought over Milos. That's where my money's at. But still, I know he's a quality player. He's a veteran. I look at Ricky Rubio, and the dude is just shy of a triple-double whenever he feels like it. It's just the question of, without that three-point shot, how much value do you contribute to this team? So I feel like he's held back by that one skill. But again, the defense is heavy, but as far as point guards are concerned, I feel like defense is almost it's not valued as much as a point guard as is in other positions.
Well, I think it should be, though, because if you have a guy like Pat Beverly on your team and you're going up against Steph Curry, then it's going to, at least hopefully limit Steph's damage. And that's why Chris Paul, when we get to Chris Paul, that's why he's so high. That's why he's been so high, is because he is that great defensively that he's able to take a guy like Steph Curry, take a guy like Russell Westbrook, and limit his damage from 30 points per game to a 25, 24 points per game.
And that's the thing. It's it turns it from stud to okay, you're still very good.
You're an all-star.
But when you think two-way player, I'm sorry, the majority for me goes to wings.
Yeah,
that's my default answer.
Like the Klay Thompson kind of players.
Yeah, Klay Thompson, Butler, Paul George,
the shooting guards,
all those kind of guys. So when I think point guard, it's interesting to see a lot of the defensive stoppers who are starters, they are ranked so lowly for us. But at the same time, it's what can they contribute to this team? And the one guy I'm looking for, Ricky mentioned, Chris Dunn. I'm curious to see because we were all so high on him coming out of college. And he stumbled coming out of the blocks last year when he got kind of thrown in the deep end after the early injury.
Let's be honest, though. The Thibodeau kind of offense and just how he does everything for a rookie who's not ready for it, that's a culture shock. If you're not ready for the kind of atmosphere that Coach Thibodeau goes, because he's a guy that we've always said he'll run you dry. He'll break your knees if he has to.
Well, that was a lot of crap that we got was because, we look back at when we were talking about the trade initially, when Chris Dunn came over and Zach LaVine, et cetera, when we were saying that he, in the minutes that he did get, he wasn't looking good. Well, people were like, well, he didn't get enough minutes. He wasn't starting. He was pushed down. And that's a lot what we hear with Tibbs rookies, that they don't get enough playing time. Right. He doesn't play as rookies. He's going to trust other guys over him. So ultimately, I mean, I just look at this, and I think that Chris Dunn, he does have a lot of potential, but he didn't show enough to be higher.
Are you giving him pretty much a pass on his rookie year at this point? Because we talked about him and Frank being 29 and 30. So basically, we're saying rookie and a guy who underperformed in his rookie year. We've got him at the bottom of the barrel.
I'm not expecting much from Frank because he is coming in raw. He's a guy that doesn't really have a developed shot yet.
He's coming into a shit situation in New York.
He's coming into a shit situation. So ultimately, I'm not expecting too much from Frank. So if I put him at 30 and he takes a 15, rank jump next year, I'm not going to be shocked. But with Chris Dunn, I think that the expectations aren't too high for him. Right. And I don't think that what we saw last year is going to change it too much. And if it does change, I see him maybe going up to like 20 or something like that. But it's not going to be something too high because, remember, this is a guy that's also very old, a very old rookie.
He came out late, yeah.
I mean, you look at guys on this list, guys like, I'm pretty sure, Brandon Knight, if he was on this list, he was on this list last year. I'm pretty sure Brandon Knight's younger than Chris Dunn. I mean, we talk about John Wall's battery mate and
Bradley
Beal. I'm pretty sure he's younger than Chris Dunn. I mean, you look at these guys on this list, Frank, I think, has like 5 years less than Chris Dunn.
True.
I mean, Chris Dunn is an old guy, and there's not that many expectations for him, both by his play last year and just the age that he has. So Chris Dunn, I think, is a guy that really needs to prove himself this year. And even when he proves himself, I don't think he's going to be taking that much of a jump because the expectations that I had for him last year are completely different than what I have for him this year. So ultimately, I think that there are guys that can rise. I think Jamal Murray being now slotted into this point guard spot. Nuggets fans are saying that he's going to have to fight for that spot, but ultimately that's who they want there, so that's why we put Jamal Murray there. But Jamal Murray, a guy that obviously we know his range. It's going to be interesting to see what he does, at least from a point guard standpoint. Can he be a guy that can move the ball when Jokic is not moving the ball and isn't the primary ball handler? Because that worked phenomenally for them.
I would say their offense just clicked in that second half of the season.
And I think one thing, too, you talked about the guys in common. Obviously, most of these guys have moved. Most of these guys have also are kind of defensive specialists. But you also kind of see these guys as the new era of positionless NBA, because you look at Malcolm Brogdon and Jamal Murray, those guys are more suited for the 2, but now they're slotted over to the 1 because they have guys like Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo that can be your
primary
1.
ball handlers without playing the guard role. And I think we are going to guards, wings, and bigs. Like, it's truly down to those 3, and even then, like, bigs were seen 6'8", 6'9" bigs. So like even then, it's kind of questionable.
Well, and the thing I kind of look at with most of the guys, only because we talked about them, where I'll throw Pat Bev, Ricky Rubio, Frank, Chris, Jamal. This is kind of like the bracket of guys where it's like, show me what you got this year. Where the new guys, it's like, show me what you got. The older guys and the guys that we had last year, that's what I mean by that. Darren Collison, show me what you can do with Indiana. Reggie Jackson, show me what you can do coming off of injury. Ricky Rubio, show me what you can do in Utah without Gordon Hayward there, because he is now in Boston. So this is more of like a bracket of point guards also in this, where it's like, you know what? Show us what you can do. Show us why you should be ranked higher.
And it's something, too, with Rubio that I ranked him lower because Hayward's not going to be there. And he's not going to have a guy that's going to be able to score like he had with Karl-Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, etc., around him to help his numbers. I think Ricky Rubio is still a great player, but I don't think he's going to have enough around him to make a noise. Real quick, we got 2 more questions for you. Last year we had Marco Carter-Williams, Jared Bayless, Darren Williams, Emmanuel Mudiay fall out of this list completely, and Derrick Rose as well, but Derrick Rose is way higher. Looking at this, are there any guys you're looking at this list that might not be on this list next year?
I think Collison is probably Parker, because of age and injury, like I could see him retiring. I think Collison is edging on like whether he should still be a starter. I would probably look to see somebody else take over a role from him.
A youth movement taking out Collison pretty much.
And then the other guy is Pat Bev, because like I said, I think he won't be their long-term solution. I think that it's really weirdly Milos. Like I'm going for a 30-year-old Euro to come in and steal his job.
I think I agree with you. I think Pat Bev, Darren Collison, Tony Parker, and then also I would throw in Reggie Jackson there too, because if Reggie
could be moved to a 6-man or to another team.
Yeah, if he's moved completely, we don't know what his position's going to be.
And those are the ones. I mean, Pat Bev because of Milos, Tony Parker because of retirement, and then I kind of want to throw Reggie Jackson out there just because of what you said, where it's like, if he has another bad season, bump you to the 6-man, we're going to find someone to replace you, although you've got 2 years on your contract.
That's the problem, is that contract then looks awful for other teams.
He's got 2 more years after this one for the Pistons.
And then out of this completely, who do you think is going to be the guy that we look back and like, why was this guy so low? Is there any of these guys, because obviously Chris Dunn's there, Frank's there, Jamal's there. You're thinking Brogdon's too low?
Brogdon's the only one for me out of there's 2 guys that I could see breaking out of this group, Brogdon and Murray.
I've got the wild card. I got the guy nobody's talked about, Elfrid Payton. Like, I weirdly enough think that he's a good player. Yeah, his basketball IQ at times has been questionable. Definitely won't argue that. But something for this Magic team is going to click, and I think that I see the chance that he can take that step forward out of these guys in this list. I think Brogdon, I'm in the boat with Sean on. He's probably he's closer to his top end now than most players are who just got drafted. Yeah. So I feel like great contributions in your first year. I think at best you're going to add a tiny little bit on top, but that's about what we're looking at.
And the thing, I mean, when Jabari comes back, he's going to be the fourth guy.
Yeah,
because Giannis is going to be there,
he's
Jabari's
a
going to
great
be there,
fit to the
Chris is going
system.
to be there. Yeah,
It's kind of like Danny Green is for the Spurs. You know,
And
he
when
came
I'm
up
saying
at Lightning.
breakout, I'm saying like for a point guard,
Yep.
if he can break into the next group we're going to talk about.
Absolutely.
Of course, Brogdon's not going to be a guy who jumps into the
Brogdon's
top 10.
a top 10.
He's not going to be a top 10 point guard, but if he can jump into the 11 to 20 range.
Yeah, I mean, I had Elfrid Payton at 18, so I had Elfrid Payton already breaking in there. I think Elfrid Payton, you look at his last month of the season, he was phenomenal. And I think if he can find more consistency in this game, the Orlando Magic can find consistency to put around him. I think that he can be a guy
adding
that
the right
takes the
guys
next step
around
up.
him definitely helps.
And then obviously the easy one's Frank. I think Frank's definitely going to be a guy that can,
He's got
can
the
bust
most
out as well.
potential.
I say he won't be 30. Like no
Yeah.
matter what, when we end this year, I don't think we look back unless he's like
The kid's 19. He's going to move up. Also, I'll throw in Jamal Murray out there just because this is his first time. I don't think he's going to be a point guard per se. I don't know. He might not be even in this list next year.
Yeah.
He might be moved over to a shooting guard or something like that if they move Gary Harris or whatever they do with that. But I think Jamal Murray is going to be a guy that might float around. And I think that Jamal Murray, we see the potential with him. We see where he went the prior year in the 2015 draft, 2016 draft. I'm forgetting my years here. I'm getting my years messed up. But you see his ability to shoot. And I think that with his youth, I think that he's going to be able to take a big step up. Any final thoughts before we move on to 20 versus 11?
You were right. 2016, he was the 7th overall pick.
I knew it was. I keep wanting to say last year, but we just had a draft.
Yeah,
so
we did indeed.
It would be the 2016 draft. Anyways,